what he's done off the court and sometimes on the court has made me kind of question that, a lot of people. But looking at the MVP race right now, which we can kind of talk about too. So LeBron goes down.
Embiid went down.
Those were probably Embiid was probably his to go, right? And then Jokic as well.
Mhm.
So Jokic right now, just because he's the last man standing, which I was talking about, probably the guy to win MVP. But people just like forgot about James Harden. Like James Harden once, so two games ago, yesterday they lost to Utah. 2 days ago he was by himself because Kyrie had a child.
I
don't remember who they played. They smashed them. It looks like he's back to running the whole Houston offense, where it's 40-point triple doubles. How is he not mentioned in just due to the fact that he did the Rockets fiasco?
Exactly.
But numbers wise and the way he's playing, he's MVP this year.
He's been very good. Again, like I said,
he's been incredible.
That whole fiasco probably puts him again. I don't think the league would want to reward
bad behavior.
A guy with bad behavior of what he did. It sends the wrong message. I will agree with you that as we say, so far the Brooklyn Nets have been, again, even without KD and Kyrie going on and off, James has pretty much solidified a good place there. And again, if they all remain healthy, and so forth, they will obviously be tough to beat in a 7-game series. They have enough talent. Defensively, we can still to me, it's still a bit of a problem. But then it tightens up in the playoffs. But tough to again guard 3 guys that are at that kind of level. So again, I'm still a little bit skeptical because again, regular season.
You'll be skeptical until they raise the banner.
I won't be skeptical to raise the banner. I'll be skeptical until I see them play some playoff games on teams that are legitimately high end and they're playing tighter defense.
So they're going to win their first round matchup because they'll finish first or second, right? So in the second round they'll end up playing someone legitimate, probably
and that's what
Philly, Miami.
Yeah,
so then that matchup is when you'll kind of
that'll be my thing. And depending on how the first round, like if they put the Knicks and they absolutely romp over the Knicks or whoever ends up being that 8th spot, or
could be
the Raptors, heck knows. Then I'll again, and then we'll see what situations. Until they haven't really played a ton together. There's only been a few games. So the one guy's injured, the other guy's injured. And again, Harden can do that now. We'll do the same thing when KD's there, when they have to share the ball. It'll be a different little situation. I still think that, again, like most first-year teams, just like LeBron in Miami, usually on the first year, it always ends up kind of rough. Kawhi and they always ends up kind of rough. Just throwing guys together and then hoping that they have the chemistry to get things done.
So Kawhi in Toronto was the total opposite, right?
It was, but he also was in a situation where he joined a team that had been together for ages. And in the Clipper situation, a lot of them were there, but he was also another significant player. And the whole mentality of the team changed. When Kawhi got there, I don't think the Raptors' mentality changed. I think Kawhi added to the mentality, while the Clippers were a hard-working bunch of scruffs per se.
Prima donnas that came
and
in,
the
and then they had to go out.
Changed it. So to me, that's the whole chemistry switch off on that. So again, in this situation so far, it's been good. I still need to see how it's done in the playoffs, because again, a lot of teams are great in the regular season, but when it comes to crunch time, and heck, we've seen it. We've seen it literally in this city, where a lot of teams are great in the regular season, and then come to the playoffs, they fumble it all over the place. And again, reputations. All those guys, minus I guess KD, have reputations that when it comes to the playoffs and when they were the lone show or trying to be that they've had issues. And again, they injury prone guys at times. KD again. So are you still giving them the favorites if KD's legitimately, let's say, out for the season?
I don't think he's going to be out for the season. But if they have 2 guys, no matter what the combination is, I still think that they're favorites in the East. Betting favorites, and I think they're betting favorites to win the title right now.
So even if it's no KD and you're good with Harden and Kyrie as getting out of the East with no KD whatsoever.
If I had to place a bet, I would say yes.
Yeah. Interesting. I don't know.
And the only other team that I would put money on that I would actually feel good about would be Philly. Yeah.
Interesting.
Now Milwaukee has a shot and Miami has a shot. Other than that, I don't see, like, Boston is lurking, I guess, in that 5th spot. I don't think the Knicks have enough firepower to do much.
Miami's going to be a problem. I think if Oladipo gets healthy, I think Miami's going to be a problem.
Well, Oladipo is what he is now, right? He's not going to, like, his squad's always going to be.
Remember, right now he's legitimately a 3 option. 3, maybe even a 4 option. That makes him a dangerous situation. Remember, you got Jimmy and Bam, and then again you can legitimately say that at the end of the day, Tyler Hero, I guess, hasn't been great this season.
But so we'll talk about Tyler Hero quick.
Dragic is usually a third option.
Dragic as well. Now, the thing with Dragic was he last year got hurt, obviously, with the playoffs, and that's, to be honest, if he was healthy, they could have, because every game except the finals where they got killed, which was well documented, they were in every game and won a bunch of the game. We went back and forth with that. That halftime score, I'll never forget it. I don't know what it was, but I know that it was a 30 point.
It was a 30 point.
It was stupid.
The Lakers just beat the brakes out of them.
So Tyler Hero was pretty much untouchable in all of the James Harden sweepstakes and everything that had happened. So if they would have threw him in this Kyle Lowry deal, it would have been really bad in hindsight because they were so reluctant to trade him.
It would have been a prisoner of the moment move that he's having a bad year and you get rid of a guy off of one bad year.
But he's in his second year and there is still potential. Like his rookie season started off decent. It was above average for sure. He elevated in the playoffs because guys went down and he had Jimmy Butler and Bam, Jimmy Butler's like a perennial all-star, and Bam was great. Now this year, all of a sudden, it's like, okay, like the same thing as I feel like what happened with Duncan Robinson this year. Tyler Hero's a little bit more skilled, but they're like, okay, we know you're going to shoot threes. We're just going to get in your face. You're not going to do much.
He's had a sophomore slump, no doubt.
Right? And now what I'm seeing is now they're going to get all these guys, and I feel like now it's going to create some space because the same thing we talked about Pascal time and time again. It's like Pascal's good, but if he's your number one guy, and the team has a game plan to stop him, which happened in the playoffs last year, what's happening this year, we're seeing struggles. Sure. We're seeing $50,000 fines. And we're seeing talking garbage to Coach Nick Nurse, right? So, like, this is, and I talked about this. I like it too. I like it because he's showing some resiliency and he's showing that he actually cares. But will the skill overcome the mouth?
Well, and that's the thing. And it's getting to a point where, and I never thought I'd be saying this, that it might be like in a year or two, it might have to be a decision between who gets, either you fire Nurse or do you trade Pascal, because it's starting to get a little. I would have never, in my wildest dreams, thought that this would be even a feasible scenario where one guy, where Siakam's become such a quote unquote malcontent out of nowhere, where now he's getting suspended and he's almost punching her. It goes to show you that at the end of the day, that might prove to be a situation where he either has to be moved or like the Raptors got to do a situation where they got to can Nick Nurse. Like, who would have thought, eh?
Okay, so I was talking with a friend. About Nick Nurse, and there was word that Nick Nurse has lost the locker room. Now, I think that is crazy. I still think that I don't even think it's cool. I think he's a top 10 coach in the league. I was arguing with a buddy about who's ahead of him. Who's really ahead of Nick Nurse? Like,
so again, like Kyle, I was never a huge Nick Nurse guy, and the fact of the matter is he almost cost them the championship in a couple of scenarios.
The timeout, yeah.
The timeout, and I was there for the timeout. That was one of the dumbest coaching decisions I've ever seen in my life. They had all the momentum. You never do that. Even an amateurish coach I've criticized him over he had rotations where he keeps guys out there way too long. And then the game gets out of hand.
Doghouse stuff. Terrence Davis.
The issue isn't, and I'll still tell to this day, I think given the same sort of set of players, and just trade out DeMar for Kawhi Leonard. You saw what Dwayne Casey did to LeBron when he was the Mavs coach. He's a very good defensive coach. You give him a guy like Kawhi, I think their results would have been very similar.
You think they would have won a title?
And I'm a big fan. And again, all in all, I always loved Dwayne Casey.
I like Dwayne Casey.
Dwayne Casey was a class act. I talked to the man a few times when I was still working at Sportsnet. A class act. Loved the man. He's a very nice guy. I think that at the end of the day, given the same set of players, and you trade out DeMar for Kawhi, the results would have been similar. And in fact, I think the Raptors would probably might have been an even better defensive team because that was Casey's forte. While Nurse was more on the offensive end of things. I think Casey was limited. Remember, Casey was coach of the year, and then they fired him. Like he was no scrub.
It seems like that's a theme in the NBA.
He was no scrub.
Sam Mitchell was the same.
He got again. Let's call a spade a spade. He got fired because that guy and DeMar cost him his job. Let's be real. They stunk in the playoffs against Kawhi.
The Cavs swept them, right?
The Cavs swept them. Yeah, those memes with Kawhi with Kyle and DeMar on his show.
LeBron, you mean?
LeBron, sorry.
LeBronto.
LeBronto. And again, that's what ended up costing him his job. So at the end of the day, I think Nick Nurse is a good coach. I don't think he's. I think he did a solid job last year. Are we seeing some warts this year with what they're going through? Absolutely. Again, top 10 we can argue and so forth. to
He's
me,
an upper echelon coach. If he got fired, he'd get a job next season, right?
based off him winning a championship, sure. At the end of the day, I can see how he could,
All of his assistants got jobs right away.
And that's true. That's I mean, even the guy. Well, it didn't make much sense at the
The
Sacramento
Minnesota one was very
Minnesota,
fishy
sorry,
one.
Minnesota,
Yeah.
that was really fishy. But again, I give him credit. At the end of the day, he's done well for himself. I'll never be the Nick Nurse fan club. He won the championship, but he made a lot of bonehead maneuvers. Even in that situation, what was it that almost cost him Game 6? Was putting down. Danny Green was horrendous.
Oh, the
that game.
dribbling when he turned it over.
And then he put Green in there for no apparent reason, and Green nearly gets a turnover and nearly costs him the game, and Steph misses the shot. Like, I would have got absolutely, imagine losing that series over some idiocy like that, and there's no reason that Green was terrible in that game. He couldn't hit it in the back of the
playoffs.
barn.
He was most of the team was playoffs.
Well, like I said, it just some of the decisions absolutely made no sense.
What were his options? We're getting off topic, but anyways, point is that Nick Nurse and Pascal, who would have thought that we'd be talking about them a year after, both winning the championship a year and a half after that. Nick Nurse has, quote, possibly lost the locker room. But the guy's a championship coach. Granted, obviously without Kawhi, they wouldn't have won it for sure. But they also, I don't think they would have won the title if Casey was there. Who knows? A lot of things went right for them when they ended up winning, right?
I think I disagree in that fact because I think Casey, given a guy like Kawhi Leonard, and he saw what
Dwayne Casey was one of the worst guys drawing a play at all times. Do you remember after every time it was an ISO, give DeMar the ball every time?
But here's the thing. But based off again, because you had DeMar as a guy, you got to play ISO with DeMar at the end of the day.
But there was no play calling. It was just give DeMar the ball and everybody get out of the way, right?
Okay, but again, we saw that. Well, here's the thing. We saw that last year a lot with Nurse too. He would give last shots to ISOs on with Norm Powell. We saw a guy. Why is Norm taking this shot? We questioned that a lot last year. It was very similar stuff. I remember. Yeah, there was literally like 10 seconds of let's give Norm a one-on-one. It's not like Nurse wasn't doing the same kind of thing. I'm telling you, you give him Kawhi Leonard for the year, and I think
give me Kawhi Leonard for the year. Give you right.
Like I said, to me, and again, there's certain things that people do that end up in my doghouse. I'll never forget. And to me, that timeout was absolutely unforgivable because I literally was there. It would have been a sell. I was literally working in the stands. At the end of the day, that would have been at home. That would have been such a greater celebration, in my opinion. It being in the arena, that would have been one of my greatest sports moments of all time.
What game was that? It wasn't
that
game
was
6.
Game 5 when they were here. They
could have won in 5. They could
have won in 5. They were up, I think, 5 points with a minute and a half. For some odd reason, they Kawhi's hitting every shot feasible. The Golden State Warriors have no timeouts. He decides to Nurse calls a timeout when they have all the momentum in the world to give the Warriors a breather because they were reeling, absolutely reeling. And even the Golden State Warriors praised Nurse after the game. That's how bad a stupid decision that was. That the Warriors were like, thank God Nurse did that because we were on fumes. They had us going. It was one of the dumbest coaching decisions I've ever seen.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about the whole Norm Powell situation and why he was essentially traded.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously his stock went up towards the end of the year. Contract year started off really slow. Now, I did this comparison yesterday. I did end up posting the podcast, so we'll talk about it now. Baseball fans will remember Albert Pujols and the contract that he got when he left St. Louis and went to Anaheim. Ended up getting between 250 and like 275 million.
Something like that, yeah.
So St. Louis did not want to pay him that much money, even though he was still at that point, one of the greatest hitters of all time. But starting the fall.
He's getting older.
Fall, right?
Yeah.
Now, point I'm making here is so they didn't spend the $250, $260 million, which is a hell of a lot of money in any sport. What they did is they allocated that money to fill out a roster. And they've been a pretty sustainable team ever since because now you look at the team who signed Pujols, the Angels, and they have nothing but terrible contracts there except Mike Trout, right? Yeah. Point is here, I'm going to go through the Raptors' salary for next year, and you can't pay Norm Powell. Why? Possibly bad signings that the Raptors have.
Okay.
Pascal Siakam next year, how much money is he making?
Probably like 35, 40 million.
33 next year, 35 the year after, 37 the year after that.
Yeah, they gave him a max deal.
An overpay, you think?
Well, I mean, like I said, it's hard to judge these, like for example, Pascal at this point last year, during the All-Star.
He made his first All-Star team.
He was a starter. He was a starter on the All-Star team. I think people forget that. People tend to, and this is the funny thing is that I don't want to go on a tangent about Kyle and all.
Kyle Lowry is a starter.
But
DeMar DeRozan is a starter.
The fact of the matter is that Kyle for half a decade had horrendous playoffs. absolutely horrendous. And people tend to forget all that. Oh, who cares about those sweeps to the Wizards and all that other stuff? Yeah, he had some horrendous play. His stats were terrible sometimes in the playoffs. They would get swept by team. They got swept by a John Wall Wizards team back in the day.
Yeah, when Beal was the second
Yeah,
year
well, yeah,
rookie.
they got absolutely annihilated. Nobody remembers that. It's all Kyle last couple years, greatness, all this baloney. And again, that's the problem that I have is people that are short sighted with some players, but forget certain situations before. Like so when Kyle.
So
was
is this
terrible,
a risk that you want to take with Pascal then?
But here's the situation. In normal times, now do I think that Pascal's been getting better. He's starting to average about 23 again. He's starting to get cooking again. And again, that's probably because he wants to beat up Nick Nurse. At the end of the Stone Cold Stunner. Anyways, fact of the matter is Pascal what we saw in the bubble? No. Is Pascal the all-star level starter that we saw probably it? No. It's somewhere probably in between. Where Pascal will probably end up being a similar situation to Kyle Lowry, where he'll likely get maybe a few more All-Star games depending on who comes up, and he'll be a guy that can be counted on to be that kind of player.
Do you think that he'll have a better career than let's say, so he has, and I'll go through it. Question is, I guess, just to get to that while I pull up some of the numbers, do you think that he'll be a better Raptor? I know that Kyle has some longevity on him, but even then DeMar, because DeMar, I'd say, was Raptor for maybe like 7 or 8 years.
Well, not if he keeps wanting to beat up Nick Nurse, he will be at the end of the day. But the fact of the matter is, again, if you're going by the situation, Pascal had that
trajectory.
The run that he had in the championship is, again, nobody but Kawhi was good in the Philly series. Without Kawhi, they don't get past Philly. The other series he was very good. He was the second option scoring for the most part between him and Fred. He was good. So again, was that the Pascal? Is that the Pascal Lash? Obviously, there's going to be growing pains when, like you said, teams are game planning for him, trying to stop him. He's got to develop his game more. He's obviously been able to
a hard worker,
and now again he's starting to get a little bit more fire. So I think that'll end up being a decent salary because, like I said, you're paying Lowry like $30 million right now, and Pascal's still in his prime. So to me, he's still going to be. And again, it's a weird season, bubbles. No home games, no fans.
It might be the same next year for all we know, right? There's no guarantee the Raptors are playing at home next year.
I mean, there's no guarantee, but I would assume based off how things are going, there probably will be fans.
Man,
Miami's already opening up things for vaccinated individuals.
Not fans, even like the border stuff, right? Like I think a lot of people thought the Raptors would play. Like if you looked at last year in the bubble, I think a lot of people would say that they thought Raptors. Nobody thought they were having to move the team. Everybody would have said no fans, but they're going to be playing in Toronto. So next year, I don't think much is going to change. But getting back to the salary cap here. So this year, the Raptors, $130 million. Next year on the books, 102. Guys that are coming off. Alex Len, Stanley Johnson, McCaw. Guys on contract. Kyle Lowry.
Are they still paying Alex Len?
Well, this is just for this season.
Who's on the books? So even though they
traded, I guess.
Okay.
I think you still have to pay him if you release him.
Damn.
So Siakam, $33 million. Kyle, 0 for next year.
Okay.
Fred, 19.6. Okay.
Just a good
Norm Powell opted out. He's going to get 11.6.
Okay.
Aaron Baines, you got him next year for 7.3. He was here for 7 this year. Chris Boucher, $7 million next year.
That's a bargain considering what he's been playing at.
Patrick McCaw, free agent. OG Anunoby, 16, 17, 18, and then in 2024-25, a player option for $19 million, which you got to think he's going to opt out.
I'm at the end of the day, like with OG, it's been unfortunate with his again injuries and other things that have gone down. I still think that again, I think it's probably another lost year for OG, unfortunately, because of what happened with injuries and then the COVID and all that other stuff. I've seen some flashes.
I was saying yesterday, I think you could make a case. Maybe not the first, but maybe the second most valuable player on the team, based on what he does defensively for this team. Best defender has to be
best defender. And like I said, I think it's another unfortunate with the injury and then hitting the COVID again. He's been a start and stop. I thought that whole rest thing the other day was pretty weak, but
it might have just also been more that he wasn't really fit to play, right?
I mean, I guess so, but like it was. I mean, at 24, I don't know. Maintenance days at 24.
I mean, more of like the COVID stuff. Maybe they just wanted to give him another day off. Maybe
that's fair enough.
Not necessarily
with a losing streak, it was one of those make or break days. I think they could have used him for that game, but
the Houston one.
Well, yeah, those are two bad losses.
Cleveland and Houston.
When you're getting like smack talk by Colin Sexton, I watched the entire game. It wasn't pretty. Larry
Jazz game as well.
The biggest problem with the Raptors this year is I personally, and I'll say that I definitely didn't give Serge enough credit. I think Serge ended up being more of a difference maker than I thought for the most part.
Big
And
time.
Mark was on his last legs. Who knows if he
Before the bubble, though, he was still
yeah,
decent.
he was still decent, but not having that kind of presence inside, and Baines just hasn't really worked
Doesn't
out.
have the size either.
Surge is definitely a miss in there, and you can see. And again, had they kept Surge and would have been Boucher off the bench,
If they
I
kept
think
Surge
they'd
this
be-
year, I think they'd be a top 4 team.
they'd be a much better team. Again, Surge has been injured a little bit as well with the Clippers, but you definitely see that Surge was more valuable than maybe we gave him credit for. And again, he had a great championship run. He's another guy that had a great run in series. So yeah, it ends up biting the Raptors more. And again, I don't know if it was because they were trying to pay Gasol or what was going on in that situation, but it is what it is. And yeah, he's been definitely a miss for them inside.
So what I was alluding to is they're going to have $28 million coming off the books this year. What would you address? What position would you try and address if you're the Raptors?
Definitely the
Interior. Don't make the same mistakes you did this year.
Well, the thing is, again, I would say you probably try to, I don't know what you could do with Baines if you can ship Baines off with a second rounder and somebody might take him, but
you can keep Baines as a backup, which is I think what he is, and I think there's been a lot of Baines slander. Some of it okay.
What do you do with Boucher?
5 and 4.
I guess. I think. Yeah, Chris is limited depending on the matchups in terms of because of his lack of bulk. But again, he's been
when he plays when he's hot, he's a 20 and 10 guy.
Yeah,
when he's hot, with the right matchup.
But I would definitely address the front court needs
in a draft because they took Malachi Flynn, and this is usually they hit on those picks, and he's still young.
Malachi Flynn's been an issue. His dad has been in the media a lot talking smack too. That might be another problem. I think Nick Nurse is just full of problems these days. You might need Kyle as a bodyguard is what I'm looking at these days. But yeah, he's again another guy that again to me was great in the preseason. They didn't give him many minutes, but we'll see what they do. It'll be interesting what they do if they are legitimately going to try to make the playoffs, or they're going to go more into the tank mode. I don't know. But by the moves today,
win, right?
By the moves today, I don't know. They definitely didn't get better today.
But they're not playing any of those guys anyways, except obviously Powell, right?
I guess
but
maybe, you probably might throw. Does Rodney Hood get minutes? I'm assuming
he has
so.
to, yeah.
I'm assuming he gets minutes, and I guess
Gary Trent's going to help them. I know that the thing with Powell too was he was really good for them offensively, but apparently Gary Trent's a good defender. And they're going to need some help on the wing, right? Especially with OG.
And he can shoot.
He can shoot. Yeah.
I saw some of the again. I haven't seen a ton of Trent Jr. in Portland. It looks like a lot of Blazers fans were not happy that he was part of that deal. So
when McCollum gets hurt every year, when he went down, he was like their only because Carmelo obviously is hit and miss.
Mm-hmm.
Trent went on fire. I picked him up in fantasy, as you probably know, and he carried the torch for me.
Well, there you go.
He was great, and then all of a sudden CJ came back as a respect thing. Obviously, he's getting paid a lot of money. Trent got reduced. He's averaging like 8 points since.
So maybe if it ends up that game, so maybe it's another great job by Masai getting another and taking him to school.
And Trent's looking for a contract as well, right?
I'm a little bit, and because you just mentioned, where does Norm fit on the Blazers?
6 men.
So back to the bench. Interesting. I wonder how that'll fit him.
Like you could start him because Carmelo. I see Carmelo's been coming off the bench recently, so you could go Dame, CJ, and Norm in a very small front line. But then you have Nurk, who's going to be coming back.
Fantasy team. You bet that somebody keeps getting broken fingers.
He gets hurt every year. There's always a new injury with him, right? He broke the leg, which
you
was
put me
gruesome.
over the top. Shout out to the fantasy league, still in first.
Shout out to the Bosnian Beast.
Oh boy!
But yeah, I think that.
He goes back tomorrow. I think I'll be watching that very closely.
You'll be watching it very closely.
Still in the IL. I'm giving it a couple games.
I might have to pick him up.
Oh boy!
But yeah, that's what I was gonna get at with Norm. The reason why I was gonna say, and this comes to like I said with the pools thing is you can't pay everybody when they're due. And guys these days, and I guess somewhat rightfully so, they're gonna get a little bit hurt when you don't offer them the money. Like Pascal got a max. Mm-hmm. If you would have offered him $5 or $10 million less, he would have probably went to the highest bidder. Mm-hmm. And all these guys now, it's like Norm, and Norm said it yesterday, I love this place, but I understand it's a business. And it's wise of him to say, because if there was no cap, of course they would want him.
So how much do you think Norm gets in free agency? Is he gonna get like?
I would think he's gonna get 12 to 15 a year.
Isn't that what he's already on though?
He's 10. I think he's 10 and 11 right now. Okay, so let's say he gets 15 a year.
Well,
Fred got 20 a season, 20, 21, 22 going up, right?
I would take Fred over Norm though.
But still, you think I think that it's
I mean,
pretty
I
safe
mean,
to
we
say
get
that
it.
Norm's going to get $15 million.
Yeah, I would say that
On probably a
he's
4-year
probably going to
deal.
get paid 15 million at least.
4 years,
if not,
60?
I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up getting up to 17 or 18. To be honest with you,
Yeah.
depending on what the market is. And
And you know he's going to go off to finish the season. Portland's going to make the playoffs. He has a good playoff run.
You know, at the end of the day, like I'll be supporting, you know, hoping that Norm does well in the playoffs.
I want to talk about that too. So we were texting about this earlier today, and I said, you know what, this one hurts a little bit, Norm. And I'm not like Norm's not my.
He's a homegrown guy.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
He succeeded
The
quite
thing,
well.
the thing with the Raptors, I think that a lot of people have really, I guess, fell in love with this team is there's a lot of homegrown guys.
Sure.
We saw Fred, Pascal, OG, Boucher, guys that played in the G League. And you saw you drafted these guys, you planted some seeds, they've come up, they've all been way better than people thought.
Absolutely.
And it hurts to see them go. And as a guy who works games and as a season seed holder, like you invest memories in these guys. And like
absolutely.
I watched Norm's highlights today of those dunks, especially in the finals.
When
And
he was,
just so many like the nostalgia and almost like chills watching that stuff. Like, I'm gonna miss that.
Sometimes you don't appreciate guys until they're really gone at the end of the day. And then that's the true thing. Like I told you, I threw it out to you. I had no shame admitting it when I was young, and I still remember to this day is that I got home, I got on my old desktop. I must have been like 15, 16 years old, and the first thing I used to go to tsn.ca it's pretty much when the internet had just come out, and I look at it and I'm like, Vince Carter traded to Nets, and I still remember it like it was yesterday where I saw that, and I'm like. I actually, because I loved Carter as a kid, and that's just the reality of it. I literally broke down and cried.
You didn't even see the return yet.
I hadn't even seen the return because I had just, I'm like, oh no, like, and I had never seen Carter live. I paid to go a couple games. Every time that I paid to go see a game, like later on, he was injured. I never got to see him live, and then I ended up paying a boatload of money when he came back on the Nets, and he got booed out of the building. But he ended up winning the game.
The overtime
The overtime, and then Jason Kidd
the reverse dunk, the Chappelle dunk, but he was early on like
I don't know if it was I think it was the game where he ended up winning the game in overtime. And
on
Jason
an alley-oop or
Kidd,
something.
I think he hit a 3 and Jason Kidd jumped on top of him or something.
Yes.
He ended up winning the game, and man, people I had never seen, and I think I paid like $200 for that. Like,
Pandemonium at the ACC.
I had never seen somebody get hated so vile. People were wearing diapers. People were throwing bibs at him. It was one of the like. I'll never forget the hostility in that crowd because I had never seen anything like it at any sporting event, at least that I had been to. They were literally out for blood. And again, to me, it just goes to show you how much people really liked Carter, and it was a heel turn. It was
the ultimate heel turn.
It was a Hulk Hogan heel turn in WCW.
Chair to the back of the head of the
where people, you can't say that Carter wasn't loved. When people I saw guys in like wearing diapers and were just like babies. It was insane. And that's why I always tell people the effect that Carter had in this city, love him or hate him. And a lot of people will trash him mostly because they've never forgiven him for what happened there. The older generation they never because he
did. It was a coward move. Like he quit on the team.
Management was also to blame for it. So I give him about 50-50 because management decided that
But he really sunk his stock too. He really did it to himself.
But again, it's very similar to what Deshaun Watson's doing in football right now. Deshaun Watson wanted some input on who Houston was going to hire. They decided to tell him to screw off, and now he's not only wanting a trade, he's facing some allegations
which is very suspicious.
Which is very suspicious at the time. But again,
we'll talk NFL before the draft.
But again, it's very similar where Carter just got disgruntled. And again, all in all, I still to this day say that Vince was right because Julius Erving would not have done as bad a job as Babcock would have because Babcock did a horrendous job. So Vince, in hindsight, Vince was absolutely right. Between Rafael Rougeau and
Joey Graham.
and again, I like Charlie. Charlie went out of the league pretty quick. I don't think he won. I think he was almost second or something like that. That was a pretty good pick. With one of the picks that he got from Carter, but what he got from Carter makes the James Harden package look like it was monumental. Eric Williams, and Alonzo Mourning didn't want to go in there, and then ended up getting like a first round pick. It was a horrendous package for a premier player. And again, but I'm gonna go off on a tangent on that just to bring back memories. But yes, it's gonna be tough to see Norm in a different jersey. It'll be weird when he comes back, but he'll get a standing ovation.
100%. If there's ever fans back when he comes back,
they'll give him the
tribute video.
He deserves it. He was a class act. He loved Canada. Yeah, I wouldn't even be surprised if he ends up coming back at some point later in his career and finishing off as a Raptor. Well, once done,
We can be
they
hopeful.
gave him an opportunity. And again, same thing with Fred. I think as much as I thought Fred was going to leave, and maybe the market dried up. A lot of these guys do give credit to some teams for taking a chance on
They're
them.
loyal. Yeah.
They're loyal. Like Fred, you never know, and it's still a thing. And I go back to what who knows what Kyle would have been had Masai actually dealt
Pulled
with
the trigger on the Knicks.
He might not have gone to where he ended up doing. Because remember, at that time he was still considered a little bit of a journeyman.
Yeah.
He had been on. It was his third team. He wasn't anywhere near an all-star level
Coach
player.
killer.
Coach killer. Like he was literally if he had gone ruined, he might have been a Raymond Felton. He might have been Raymond Felton at the end of the day if I gone bad for him.
Could have been.
Raymond Felton.
He was a much higher pick. So I'll run through the East really quick. Update. So Philly 31-13, sitting in first. A game and a half up on Milwaukee, who's 29-14. Brooklyn, still a game and a half back at 30-15. So those three teams are really jockeying for a position. Fourth place, Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah, my man Terry Rozier.
22-21. Miami Heat, 22 wins, 22 losses.
But they're in the going back.
They're gonna drop
because
it's so tight.
Well, LaMelo's down too, right?
Yeah.
So that'll be a big problem.
And they didn't make any moves today, which is a little bit surprising too. Miami Heat 22-22 at fifth. The Knicks 22-22 in 6th. Atlanta 22-22 in 7th. So they're all tied up. So you look at after that, it's Boston who's in 8th place at 21-23. Then you have the Pacers who are a lock for the playoffs every year, 20-23 and 9. The Bulls at 19-24, which is the last playing game.
See, the Pacers were interesting because I thought the Pacers were going to do what Orlando did today, which they were rumored to try. They were thinking of getting rid of Turner and Sabonis, and it was all over the place.
Yeah,
even Brogdon was really on the block.
I heard that they were listening. Everything was really weird. But then I heard today that TJ Warren's now out for the year officially. So then they had a lot of guys to play with that were 15 to 20 point guys. And then just to end it right here, the Raptors 11th place at 18-26. So out of a playing game, only 1.5 games out, but you look at Chicago are a lot better now, so you have to jump.
Where's Chicago's at?
Chicago only has one more win, but the Raptors have 2 more losses, so a game and a half behind them. Yeah. So the Raptors have to jump Chicago. Ahead of them is Indy, Boston, Atlanta. Only 4 games back there, but like I said, a lot of ground to make up and a lot of teams to jump.
Yeah, the thing is, like I said, I don't, because I personally believe that at the end of the day, they, depending, I guess the playoffs are what, like a month and a month. Well, maybe. I still don't know what the NBA. The NBA goes to a bubble again.
No, I don't think the players want. I think it would be wise to, but I don't think
vaccinated, and I guess maybe they won't do that. But like
I
said,
don't think
it's
they
risky.
will. Do you think that the Raptors make the playoffs?
I think the Raptors likely probably get into a play-in game.
You think they get a play-in game?
That's the best case scenario. I would have thought that. That they might get into a play-in game.
So Chicago and India,
I think there's certain teams that will, again, the Raptors aren't as bad as they've been, and they're due for a run when everybody gets healthy.
Which is now.
And again, at the end of the day, also I have to look at their schedule of who they play.
It's a tough schedule.
I think Charlotte will drop probably pretty significantly without LaMelo. I don't think that. Terry Rozier's been playing very well. PJ Washington. Other guys like that, I think they'll drop without LaMelo. And again, I expect Boston to be better, but I expect the Raptors.
Not going to jump Boston.
And I still don't fully trust the Knicks and a lot of those teams.
The Knicks are a lock for the playoffs.
You think so?
Oh yeah, they're just too tough defensively.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're not. They're going to win enough games to stay. They're in like 6th place right now, I think.
Well, but
I know it's tight.
6 and 9 is like a game, right?
Yeah, but if I had to place a bet on the Knicks making the playoffs or the Raptors, whoever had the higher seed, I would take the Knicks. I think they've just been more stable all year. Not the better roster, but they're more stable.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess. But like I said, again, they're still down the stretch. We'll see. I think the Raptors might make a play-in game as the last play-in team, probably.
Okay, I would say it's 50-50 at this point.
Yeah, that's pretty. Well, again, those are the. Yeah.
My heart's telling me that. My mind's telling me that. Okay, last thing, I just got a notification. So Masai Ujiri released a statement or something about the whole Kyle thing.
Oh boy.
Honestly, we didn't know which way it was going to go. We came in today looking at both possible ways. To be honest, I viewed him as someone that could go and put a stamp on what you're trying to do this year, which would be win a championship. I know if we went to those places, I know what he could have done. I've lived it. I've seen it. If I value him too much, hey, that's what I believe in. So pretty much saying that the offers were not what he wanted. He didn't want to send them over for a bag of, Snickers or whatever it was. So he kept him with the Raptors because he didn't want to get fleeced on the deal.
Well,
your thoughts?
Well, it's and and I'm a big Masai guy, and I get the PR, this thing.
It's a good PR stunt.
It's a PR situation, and I completely get it. Remember, like, this is a guy that him and Kyle have obviously had problems over the years with the whole Demara thing, and that was, a big, and like Kyle calling him out with Rachel Nichols on those interviews, and Kyle acting like a baby,
child, yep.
a child with his best friend goes to play with somebody else. That was what the situation was, in my opinion. My imaginary friend, a 33-year-old doing that, like, ridiculous. But anyways, that's what I get. I can't stand about. So truthfully, it's nothing about Kyle. I can't stand.
It's the person. It's the gimmick.
And it's also that he bothers me at sometimes, and he plays some great defensive ball. But to
as
me,
a player, we love him.
Kyle tends to take. To me, he's been just an irritating player to me because even watching some of the games of late. We'll be on a run, and he'll just take some of the stupidest shots where
a pull up three and fast break.
A pull up three in a fast break where there's no one under the rim. Where he tends to be a run killer at times, and it irritates the crap out of me sometimes. But anyways,
so Masai was a good PR move.
Let's be real here. When Masai had already dealt him when he first got here, he dealt him for a bag of chips. It was
a first round pick.
It was Iman Shumpert, who we know,
No, but at that point,
Tiana Taylor and Tiana Taylor famous.
A few steamy videos.
At that point, Iman Shumpert wasn't much in the league at that point.
Yeah, but he had a higher stock then than he did later, for sure.
Well, again, as a younger guy, and again, yes, the Knicks first round picks, which again we saw that could be Jakob Poeltl, that could be all sorts of stuff. We saw what they were doing with those things. Anyways. He nearly dealt them for a bag of chips. So do I think that Masai all of a sudden got some revelation with Kyle Lowry? No. I think Masai got a mulligan on a trade thanks to James Dolan being an idiot. Like I said, I don't know what Kyle would have been in that system. He could have been the Kyle that we saw. He could have been Raymond Felton.
Nobody succeeds.
I think Raymond like Ty Lawson probably had some issues with his weight and his activities outside
off the court.
Well, we know. I mean, Ron's seen what Ty Lawson does outside the court. Shout out to Ron Davis, the podcast. So all in all, so we don't know the situation. So do I think that Masai is tongue in cheek with some of those comments? I think so. I think he gives Kyle credit that
respects
his loyalties, respects what he's done, which I do as well. But I think had Tyler Hero been on the board or maybe even gotten Precious, the young Heat center, and along with a couple of first round picks, Kyle would be back in his bags. And it is. He got probably undercut. Pat Riley's a shrewd guy. If they offered what they did for Oladipo, I would not have taken that trade. And I'm not even on the Kyle Lowry fan club. I would not have done that because to me it doesn't do anything. Olynyk's pretty much at the end of the line. Avery Bradley's a guy that doesn't do much for the Raptors. I think it was a second round picks for. You're not going to trade him for that. So if that was, and that's what the situation was, I don't do it. And again, depending on what Philly had offered as well. So I don't know how much of a market there really was for Kyle. And
the thing that Kyle that was so hard, he's making $30 million, right?
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. But if Kyle gets dealt for a bag of chips, it's
a bad look.
It also looks at that maybe Kyle isn't as valuable as people actually think Kyle is at the end of the day. And
I think it's just the salary. Like if he's making $15 million, I think every team is knocking on the door.
Sure,
or $20 million.
But you got to match these salaries. You're sending fillers anyway, so the salary isn't the biggest of deals. Now, again, that kind of Miami, for example, can't send Dragic to Toronto because Dragic has basically no
because he just signed a contract this year.
Well, I think he has a no trade, so he can nix any deal. So at the end of the day, that was put in there. So he probably would not have taken that deal to Toronto. So that inhibits a lot of contenders. And the Lakers, to me, they weren't going to send Schroeder to Kyle because to me that's at best a similar move, or it doesn't make him any better.
You don't think it makes them any better just for this season?
If you got to send, like for example, if you got to send in, I think they were thinking about Schroeder, and then you have they probably would have wanted Taylor Horton, and again, that's a guy that looks like he has some decent potential. I don't know how much that. Again, to me, maybe the Lakers, as Shannon Sharp would say, he would have packed Kyle Kuzma's bags if it was Kuzma and something else, and probably gone Lowry because Kuzma's a little bit of an enigma in LA is the best word.